Hello, I'm Justin Wheeler, and welcome to this episode of Nonstop Nonprofit. Before we dive in today, I have two questions. Have you ever heard of the Google Ad Grant? And would it positively impact your nonprofit if you could reach more people searching the internet? Those are the two questions that Nonprofit Megaphone CEO Grant Hensel asked hundreds of nonprofits back in 2016. It's kind of a trick. Grant explains that the answer to the second question is the first question. But when 75% of the nonprofits he spoke with had never heard of the Google Ad Grant, that obvious disconnect became the catalyst he needed to build Nonprofit Megaphone, a marketing agency focused solely on helping nonprofits get, use, and optimize Google Ad Grants. Today's conversation is an exercise in expertise. As Grant himself says, he can't even spell Facebook, but when it comes to Google Ad Grants, he's got answers for days. So settle in and listen in to a true master at his craft. Grant will explain what a Google Ad Grant is, at what stage of growth your nonprofit should begin focusing on the grant, and how to identify opportunities that can function as a contributor to your cause as well as a revenue driver, and potentially even a source of long-term support for your nonprofit. Finally, the bottom line is that Google Ad Grants are all about the outcome, not the spend. And Nonprofit Megaphone has the experts to maximize that outcome, as well as the data to back up their work. Let's dive in. It is your number one priority to ensure that your business can continue to deliver on its mission, whether it's this year, next year, and beyond.
I'm always so baffled when I do webinars. There's always somebody at the end who raises their hand and says, I'm the development director. Should I have access to the budget? I'm always like, yes, you've got to know that.
The best thing that we can do is just raise as much money as possible and then give it to the people around the world.
If you're going to be sustainable, you have to have a multi-channel strategy to reach all of these different generations of donors, however they want to be reached.
The best thing you can ever do as a nonprofit leader is spend as much money as possible on your story.
And it snowballs like any peer-to-peer campaign. The more people that view this content, the further and further it grows.
Then you're doing it wrong.
Okay.
That is unacceptable, and that is not the way to run a board.
The more nonprofits can give their donor base that experience of the impact that's being made on the ground level, there's nothing else that you have to give someone. This is Nonstop Nonprofit. Hey listeners, so excited for today's episode with Grant, who is the founder and CEO of Nonprofit Megaphone, which we're going to talk all about today. Before we jump into that, Grant, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. You're quite the entrepreneur. You've been doing a lot in the nonprofit space. So we'd love to, if you could share your background with our listeners.
Absolutely. So everyone makes fun of me for being named Grant and working with the Google Grant, which it took me actually a couple of years to realize that was anyway. So now I'm just embracing it. But I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was really young, and it is a dream now to be doing entrepreneurial work, growing Nonprofit Megaphone, and also working with nonprofits. I've done other stuff as part of launching an app called the Roundup app, which let people round up and donate their change, and some other ventures before that, but thrilled to be now focused on Nonprofit Megaphone for once.
So tell us more about Nonprofit Megaphone and the core sort of services you provide to nonprofits.
Totally. And I'll give you, in case it's helpful, I'll give you some of our quick backstory. So we started 5 years ago, and we began by surveying a couple hundred nonprofits and asking them, what is your familiarity with the Google Ad Grant? Have you heard of it? Do you know what it is? Are you using it? And 75% of nonprofits said, we've not heard of it or we're not using it. And then Our second question in our 2-question survey was, if you could reach more people who were Googling what your organization does, would that be impactful? And everyone said, 10 out of 10, very impactful. Yeah. And so we realized that there's a disconnect. The answer to the second question is the first question. And so we set out to be a marketing agency that just helps people with the Google Ad Grant and does nothing else. So I can't even spell Facebook. I'm horrible at everything that you could possibly imagine other than the Google Grant. That is the one thing that we're good at, and that we help just over 400, it's like 430 something nonprofits get the Google Grant and then use it to share their messages with the world.
So for those who are not familiar with the Google Grant program, give us an overview of what Google is offering nonprofits, and then we'll get into a bit more of the how after that.
The Google Grant is a really cool program. It's been around for over a decade now, and it gives nonprofits 10 grand a month to spend on ads in Google search. So if you're a 501c3 and you're not a hospital or a school or a government agency, and it's both in the United States and in dozens of other countries, you apply for this grant. Everyone who applies and who meets the criteria gets approved. It's a bit of a process, but you have a 100% success rate if you're doing it right. And you then get 10 grand a month of credit to spend on these ads. So if you're a humane society, you have people Googling, adopt a dog near me, you can have ads that show up in that search results page. So someone Googles that, they'll see a little ad for your website. If they click on it, they get taken to your website and they can learn about what you do. And the grant goes on forever. So as long as you keep following the rules, $10,000 a month over and over again into perpetuity.
So we're talking about $120,000 a year in free money, basically, to promote an organization. The number one question, as you know, Fundraise, we provide technology to nonprofits. Their number one question after they're fully implemented was, how do we get new donors? Google Grant, $120,000 a year in advertisement is obviously a great place to begin. Do you have just to understand sort of how big the program is or how many nonprofits are, do you have any data around sort of the size of this program and how much Google has given out over the last decade or so?
Yeah, I don't know the totals offhand. I believe we talk to the Google Ad Grants team all the time, and I think the last number I heard from them is roughly 40,000 nonprofits have the grant currently globally. Wow. That is,
which we know there's 1.5 million nonprofits for organizations on shoestring budgets who have $0 to pay in advertisement. I mean, this is just a no-brainer. And so, I mean, I'm surprised by that. Why is it so few organizations? Is it just because there's not a lot of awareness around it, or are there other challenges or obstacles nonprofits encounter?
Yeah, I think that awareness is still a huge issue, even 10 plus years in. I think the other component is that to be successful, the Google Ad Grant is a component of digital marketing. And to be successful, it does require a decent web presence, like a good website, and also something for people to do once they arrive at the website. So people using Fundraise have a lot of productive things for people to do. Others might not have that. And so it's definitely, if I was starting a nonprofit, it would probably be like the 8th thing that I did, not the first or the second thing. And so for some people, it might not yet make sense.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So tell us about your approach. And you mentioned 400 plus clients that you're helping, and you're highly specialized. You're not like, all the digital things. It's highly focused, which I like that because I think it's important, especially when, $10,000 a month is not a small amount of advertisement money. So talk to us about how you work with your clients. What are the things that your team does to provide to really optimize this grant money, which I would imagine the end goal is to acquire more donors, to raise more funds, and to, generate more attention and awareness around the organization itself. So tell us a little bit about what you guys actually do to help organizations optimize this important grant.
Absolutely. As you could probably imagine with the 400 plus, we have it down to a process, and the process is as follows. So we have a number of conversations before we even start working with someone to understand, what are your goals? What are the current strengths of your website? Do you have content that people would be Googling that you could then use these ads to promote? For some organizations, they don't have that yet. So if we go back to our Humane Society example, if you just have like a homepage, an about page, and like a contact page or something, you can reach some people, certainly, but it would be great if you had other pages that were answering questions. Why is it impactful to adopt rather than buying a pet, or, other things that people might be searching for? So we help clients think through that. And in some cases, we can even help them write the content. Other people write their own content. We then help people get approved for the grant if they're not already approved. Some people had it in the past and then they sort of didn't keep up with it and it got paused. So we can reactivate it, whatever that looks like. And then the third thing is we set up conversion tracking. So it's great to know that when someone comes to your website that they're there, but you really want to know, are they signing up for your newsletter? Are they watching videos? Are they filling out forms to volunteer? Are they donating, through a platform like Fundraise provides? What actions are they taking? And then our team essentially creates dozens and dozens of ads with dozens and dozens of different keywords to try and reach anyone who might be searching for something related to the work that your organization is doing, and bring those people to specific pages on your website that make sense, and trying to bring more of those people and higher quality people so that they do more of the conversion actions, is what they're called, for what you ultimately want to drive as an outcome. And that just becomes an iterative process over and over again. More ads, better tracking, more optimization. Our ideal client has a lot of stuff going on, and they say the Google Ad Grant is a great opportunity. We don't want to be doing it day to day. We want someone else to do it, and we'll direct the strategy. So that's where we come in.
So what would be like the outcome of spending $120,000 a year on Google Grants? Is there like a pure ROI play where it's just to acquire more donors and more revenue? Or are there other sort of use cases and or examples where you've really seen it impact an organization in other ways? Any sort of like case studies or use cases that you're really excited about to share? We'd love to dig into some of those.
Absolutely. We're obsessed with case studies. Our website, we have like 50 case studies on there.
Oh,
if
nice.
you're looking for something that like is related to it, we organize them by the type of nonprofit. So if you're like, I'm an animal nonprofit or I'm international, whatever. So lots of stuff there. But I'd say that it certainly depends on the type of organization. And a comment on the spending of the grant. Some organizations, probably many organizations, can reach every single person in the geography that they serve that are searching for things that they care about. And it might only cost $5,000. If you're a humane society just in Chicago, you might be able to reach anyone who searches anything animal related for $8,000 a month. And so you'll have $2,000 left over, which is fine. And it doesn't matter. It's about the outcome, not the spend. But with that, it depends on what the organization is looking to accomplish. So if I'm a humane society, I'm probably trying to drive adoptions, which is also a revenue driver for me, which is fantastic. And those people will probably become my donors long term. If I'm a performing arts organization, like I'm a symphony or an orchestra, same thing. I'm trying to sell tickets. Those people will eventually both drive revenue, but also become donors. For other organizations, like Girls Who Code is a client, they have programs that people can participate in, which allows them to accomplish their mission. Those people will ultimately probably become volunteers and supporters as they get older and so forth. So that's a good way to think about it. That's not to say that there can't be immediate donation capacity, especially if the work your organization is doing happens to become top of mind in a big way. So last year, 2020, obviously a crazy year, but racial justice became a big topic last year and continues to be, which is as it should be. A lot of people were searching for that. And we have a number of clients that do great work in that area who got huge amounts of donations through the Google grant because people were saying, I can't believe these things are happening. I want to be involved and be helpful. And those people were, ready to immediately donate. And so that's definitely not, normal course. Sadly, people are not typically Googling like, I have too much money. Where should I get rid of it? But in some circumstances, it's a great way to reach those people.
Are you seeing, it's probably a little early to tell, but we've had obviously previous stimulus rounds. Are you seeing any sort of like more demand in search when like stimulus, money is being sent out to individuals? Does that like spark any sort of opportunities for organizations, or is that a little bit harder to uncover?
It's certainly, any type of legislation certainly drives a heck of a lot of search volume. We have some organizations that are helping, empower small businesses. And so when the Paycheck Protection Program comes out, lots of people searching for things like that. Lots of people searching for information. We have organizations that help folks in, disadvantaged communities with tax preparation or services like that. So those organizations have certainly seen big increases in search volume, but I'd say it's probably been more targeted from what I've been seeing.
Okay. And I want to go back to something you said here in the beginning. You said if you were starting a nonprofit, it wouldn't be the first or second, but probably the eighth thing that you would do. So help me understand what are the things that you need to be done before launching with Google Grants?
Yeah, I think the big picture is I would want to make sure that, one, my mission and message was clear and that was clearly expressed on my website. So if someone came to my website, they would understand immediately what I'm all about and how that they can help, come alongside the mission. And then two, so maybe it's the third thing. Two, I would make sure that website content exists that relates to things that people might be searching for. And there are lots of free tools. Answerthepublic.com is a great free tool that you can put in, adopt a dog, and it'll give you 20, 30 questions that people are asking around that. And so in a perfect world, you would have pages on your website that answer those questions, because that is perfect content to then advertise using the Google Grant. You're reaching your audience. This is what they're searching. You're giving them what they want in the form of an answer, and then you're giving them a next step. And once you have those components, then the Google Grant becomes hugely impactful. But before that, it's a bit of an uphill battle.
Right. And so it sounds like, too, the sort of best sort of way to optimize Google Grants is to match, obviously, intent, right? When someone is searching for something, asking a question, whatever it might be, and your ad comes up, and like adoption is a pet adoption, as you've used as an example before, sending someone directly to a donation page is going to see very little conversion. Sending someone to a page where it talks about the adoptions gives you an opportunity to adopt. Obviously, that's what you want to do. You want to align sort of where the user is going once they click the ad to the content on your website. And which is great because, I mean, outside of Google Grants, right, just having good SEO, strong keywords for what people are searching for anyways is going to be a benefit. So do you guys do anything on keyword optimization within the content? I know you mentioned you write content. How do you see sort of SEO, keyword, and Google Grants working together in harmony, if you will?
It's such a good question, because lots of nonprofits ask us about, should we be caring about SEO and how does that relate to this world? The interesting thing about the Google Grant is it is in some ways like a perfect middle ground between paid advertising and organic search engine optimization. If you're a for-profit, you have to choose between, I'm going to give Google a lot of real dollars to get right to the top of the search results page, or I'm going to give someone else a lot of real dollars to try and optimize my website and have the pages show up organically and naturally. And the cool thing about the Google Grant is that it gives you the best of both worlds. It's very cost effective, but it also quickly gets you to the top of the search results page. And so to answer your question, yes, we chat with each of our clients and we say, depending on how much content you have, some organizations have so much content that it's not a problem at all. Most organizations, though, there's room for more content. And we'll say, do you have a team internally that can help with that? Do you have a current process, or do you need external help? In either component, in either situation, we're happy to do some keyword research and provide topics of articles that we know will basically be a slam dunk. And that instead of, in a normal world, if you're a for-profit, you'd have to write the article, build links to it. It'll take like 6 months, and then maybe someone will see it on Google. If you're a nonprofit, you write the article, we send a bunch of Google Ad Grant ads to it, and you immediately are getting benefit from that new piece of content, which is very cool. And it's like an advantage that nonprofits have that I don't know if they always fully appreciate, because it's extremely powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's free advertisement. And so the skepticism that many people might have is, well, how long, right? Is this like sort of like a way to get us our foot in the door to see some good ROI, and then all of a sudden it starts costing us? But it sounds like that's not the intent. I mean, Google's been doing this for over a decade. So do you have any thoughts on individuals out there that are skeptical about, is this is too good to be true? Am I really getting $10,000 a month in free ads? What's sort of your thoughts around that, the skeptical individual?
Yeah, it's the too good to be true is both true and not true. It's not that it's an instant push button, receive millions of dollars in donations. It's absolutely not that. There's a lot of work that goes, A, getting people to your website requires content, as we've discussed, and then B, taking those people and converting them ultimately to donors takes a lot of intermediate steps. Most people do not donate the first time they arrive on a website. They probably sign up for a newsletter. They do something. There's intermediate stages. It's not like proposing marriage on the first date. So there's certainly that component. On the other hand, Google is definitely not. We've chatted a lot with the Google Ad Grants team. We know them very well. I've been out to California to meet them. They're all actually working remotely now, as are we all. But we've had lots of calls with them. Their goal is truly like social impact. With the ad grant, you never put in any billing information. So your credit card, Google doesn't have it. They couldn't charge you if you wanted to. If you get up to the $10,000 in a month, it just stops. So there's no capacity for overages or anything like that. And I'll say that our experience, we have, a handful of clients that have chosen to also run paid ads in addition to the Google Grant, but it's not the majority. 90% plus are just using the Google Grant, and that gives them everything they need in terms of reaching that audience, which is fantastic.
Do you see any correlation to like usage of the $10,000 within an organization's budget, right? So like I know you work with enterprise nonprofits that have much larger budgets. more content, much more donors and so forth. And then you work with some small nonprofits who are maybe just getting started, who've got good content and are growing their content. Is there any, can the small nonprofit, spend enough of it, or can the large nonprofit, does it need more? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have done a ton of analysis on this question and trying to figure out how we can predict it. And it is much more correlated to content than to budget. So we have organizations that are enormous in terms of revenue, but that have not yet made the investment in website content. And they are not able to spend as much of the grant as very small organizations. We have one organization, all volunteer run. It's called Kennel to Couch. It's fantastic. It's about pit bulls and helping them get adopted. And, small, all volunteer team, shoestring budget. Like they're making every dollar go incredibly far. They are spending the full amount, $10,000 each month, because they made such an investment in content from day one. And so the spend is really not the yardstick that you should use, but in that metric, they're outperforming organizations that are probably 10,000 times their size, truly. And it's just because,
Wow.
they're smart about it and they're using the content to their advantage.
Yeah, that's great. And then a couple more questions here. Is there a baseline? If an organization is looking at this and, they're looking to increase revenue, is there sort of like a baseline goal where you'd like to see an organization get to after, they've dialed this in, after they've optimized content? Do you have any sort of baseline metric around, like, for every dollar you spend in Google ads, you should be able to get to a 2 or 3 or 4x sort of return? Do you have any sort of data around that, or is that the wrong way to think about this?
It is for some organizations. So we have an example of a client we work with called The Little Market, which is a fair trade, handmade goods from artisans in a variety of countries. They're essentially a nonprofit e-commerce website. And so they're trying to sell these, actually really like, people should check it out. It's very cool. They're trying to sell these items because that directly furthers their mission. They absolutely think about, what is the dollars of revenue that we are bringing in. For other organizations, it's a little more big picture. So environmental advocacy organizations, they're trying to get a message out and change hearts and minds about certain topics and, create a movement in that way. And so their view of success is much more about, how many people are we reaching? Are we getting them to sign up for our communications? Are we getting them to watch videos and so forth? So it certainly depends. And plenty of people are hybrids. If you're a symphony, you're probably in the middle. You want to drive ticket sales, but you also want to promote the love of music in general. And so you have to balance those two things.
Do you see the grants being used for things like driving traffic to career pages or volunteer opportunities? Maybe so not directly related to dollars raised, but to other sort of opportunities the organization is looking, whether it's staffing and so forth. Do you see it as an effective spend for that type of category?
Absolutely. Staffing is a big one. If any nonprofit that has a lot of job openings that you're trying to fill, the Google Ad Grant is fantastic because there's so many people searching for that type of thing, especially now. So that is enormous. Volunteer opportunities, certainly. Events do very well as well, and especially if the event is something that someone could conceivably want to be doing as a concept. So if you have like a 5K, a lot of people are searching for 5Ks this weekend. And so this is a great way to reach them. There are also, our team has been really creative in terms of the ways that they'll advertise these things. Some nonprofit events would be appropriate to attend as like a date night. And so we'll run ads that say, for people searching date night opportunities, and this will be an opportunity. So you can go to this event and like see the great work that a nonprofit is doing. So there are a lot of creative ways to do it.
Very cool. So it sounds like, this is, aside from driving more donations, right, which is important, there's lots of other opportunities for organizations to really optimize what Google's offering. And so if you're listening today and you're not currently spending free money on Google for AdWords, Grant and his team are the people to talk to. We're going to put their information in the podcast summary here. Make sure you can find and get a hold of Grant, as they have worked with many of our mutual clients and have heard nothing but good things to say. Grant, how else can people find and follow along the work that you're doing?
Best place is probably Nonprofit Megaphone. It's just nonprofitmegaphone.com. We have, all the normal social channels as well. People have questions for me. My email is just grant@nonprofitmegaphone.com. And if you have like a weird Google Grant, issue or question that you're running into, shoot me an email. I'm happy to be helpful however I can.
That's awesome. Well, Grant, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your expertise with our community. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to continuing partnering with you and your team at Nonprofit Megaphone.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Justin. Thanks for the great work you guys are doing as well. It's super cool to see the success that many of our mutual clients have had with your guys' platform. So thanks for the great work.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Nonstop Nonprofit. This podcast is brought to you by your friends at Fundraise, nonprofit fundraising software built by nonprofit people. If you'd like to continue the conversation, find me on LinkedIn or text me at 562-242-8160. And don't forget to get your next episode the second it hits the internets. Go to nonstopnonprofitpodcast.com and sign up for email notifications today. See you next time.